to the ongoing process of colonization. We are thankful to Dr. Jill Carter for inspiring the ways in which we have come to relate to land across physical and virtual space. So before I toss things over to James, our moderator, I just want to take us through some Zoom etiquette reminders. For folks who are not presenting, we ask that you just keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. Know that closed captioning is available for this panel, and it's located at the bottom of your Zoom screen to access that. Also, Tammy is our Foot 30 host tech support today. So if anyone's experiencing any technical difficulties, Tammy is your go-to person for that. So at this point, I would like to introduce the group's moderator, James David Jacobs. James is a presenter and company sound designer. James can be heard Tuesday through Friday evenings on Classical WETA. He is also one of the announcers for their online channel, Viva la Voce. He has a long career in radio and is also a musician and sound designer, and he will be facilitating. So James, I will pass things over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Last fall, Doctors Rosalie Purvis and Deboroti Chakraborty co-directed the play Anonymous by Naomi Iizuka. The play is itself a very loose adaptation of Homer's Odyssey and was written in 2006. This was the first production Rosalie directed since joining the University of Maine as Libra Assistant Professor of Theater and English in spring of 2021. And it was also the first live theater production produced by the university since the beginning of the pandemic. Before coming to Maine, Rosalie had spent several years collaborating with Deboroti on several projects, both in the States and in Kolkata, where Deboroti is assistant professor in the Department of the Performing Arts at Presidency University in India. In this production, each director worked with their students and local artists, and the performances combined live actors in Maine interacting with pre-recorded performances from India in a process that the directors will be discussing today. I myself is one of the two sound designers for the production, and joining us from Kolkata is the other sound designer, as well as music director and composer for the production, Gorky Mukherjee, the production manager and actor, Ankita Sarkar, two more actors, Avirupa Baduri and Kushani Mukherjee. And from Maine, we have three students who acted in the production. Nidley Raymond, who also served as dramaturg for the production, Katie Luck, who also served as a dramaturg on the production, and actor Asher Mason. And forgive me if I got any of the names wrong, and please feel free to correct me as you come on into the discussion. And I'll begin
also, James,
with...
our film designer, Arno Broy, has also joined the panel with us. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Deboroti. I appreciate that. So we've got a full house today. So thank you so much. It's great that we're all here to discuss this project. And I'm going to start with Rosalie. And I'd like to ask you just how this project came to be.
Thank you so much, James. I also just sent everyone around a sheet with everyone's short bios and a couple of links in case you're interested in looking at them later, to save us the time of doing long bio introductions for everyone. So yes, as James mentioned, I had worked with Deboroti for many years. Both of us were performers, directors, theater artists, and also professors of literature and theater. Also, we both studied dance, and for many years we were amazed at how much overlap there was between our careers, and also juggling these things in our two respective kind of weirdly similar urban spaces of Kolkata and New York City. And we began working together also with the company that Deboroti is a member of, Chaipani, based in Kolkata. And we'd worked on several projects since 2015, and my work and Deboroti's work had become very linked. And we had all kinds of plans to continue our work together, doing multiple shows. And then those plans, as so many other plans, got thwarted by the pandemic because I was unable to travel to India. most of the work that we had done was centered around interculturalism and borders and migration issues. And, we continued to discuss these projects and talk about them, but now we were unable to physically be in the same place. So around this same time, I actually began a position at the University of Maine as Libero Assistant Professor of Theater and English, and moved to Maine, and there began to meet my students. And I found in my students a group of kindred spirits who cared as much as I did about art, about theater, and about activism. And I felt this longing to bring my worlds together and to be able to connect the students in Maine, who I was already growing to connect with so much artistically, with my company and my students that I had met in Calcutta. And I also was talking a lot with my students in Maine and about the desire that we all had to work on projects that addressed issues of social justice and issues of interculturalism. But we were very much aware that at the University of Maine, our student body lacks the ethnic and racial diversity that would allow us to tackle certain projects that would require that type of diverse representation. So the idea occurred to me whether there might be a way to join forces with my students and my company in India and my students in Maine. And as I was considering that, on another back burner of my mind, I was remembering this play Anonymous by Naomi Iizuka. And that play had been on my mind already for many years. I'd been thinking about working on a production of it. As James said, the play is loosely based on the Odyssey, and it deals with issues of forced migration as a global crisis and displacement, and the trauma of being divided by political, cultural, and linguistic borders, and also maybe some of the sad gains that also come from the cross-cultural experience and intercultural experience that comes through the migration journey. Ultimately, the story is about a young boy who loses his mother through war and also, I guess, environmental crisis that forces migration, and he spends the duration of the play seeking his mother, and along the way encounters many obstacles, adventures, meets people. So because the play deals with this kind of trauma of divide and separation that Deboroti and I had been thinking about and working on projects pertaining to this for many years, also based on our own experiences, both current and ancestral, we wanted to continue along this line and bring our students into this world. And we also realized that at this moment, even if we hadn't before, any of us who hadn't experienced this sense of divide and sort of the pain of separation, pretty much all of us on some level had experienced it now due to the global pandemic and due to the fact that many of us who wanted to be together and connected were unable to be. And also all of us had began using the screen, say through Zoom like we're using today, as an imperfect way to mediate those distances and that divide. And all of us had had the experience of the screen kind of being a, not perfect way of connecting. And in a way, there's a beauty to the fact that we have these screens mediating, but also this sort of, sadness, perhaps, in the fact that the screen is ultimately not the same as a physical presence. So the idea came to us, what if we were able to do the play, create a version of the play Anonymous, where some of the students, my students in Maine, would appear live on stage, but students in India and actors in India would appear pre-filmed on screen. And we were thinking that maybe even to take it a step further, that the actors from India would even appear on sort of movable, malleable screens that were made of fabrics. And so in some cases, the actors could grasp at the screens, and then find that ultimately nobody was there. And so to kind of play with this, to play and experience this feeling of separation. And we were thinking that also for the audience, this sense of partial alienation would be made palpable for them as well through this imagery on the screen that was imperfect as we experience screens, in the sense that they were not actually physically present, and also the kind of grieving that we had around the fact that they were in a different zone, having to be pre-filmed. So this divide would be maybe even further enhanced by incorporating the screen element. So as we worked on this, we discussed this production, we got a team together. We worked with our filmmaker, Arnob, who's here with us today, and we started planning this production. We worked with all of our designers, and in that way, the production sort of began to take shape in our imaginations, and it seemed like a completely impossible thing to do, but we decided to move forward with it anyway. And with the support of my students here and our company in India, we decided that we would take the plunge. And Deboroti, I think, will be able to say more on that. So James, I know you might have a question for her.
Well, actually, I just wanted to turn this over to Deboroti and hear her side of the story, as it were, in terms of her participation in this project.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, so to take it from where Rosalie finished, Rosalie and I have been talking about. So yes, first the pandemic, amongst many other things that we lost. One of the things which we were not able to do was to meet each other and work together, Rosalie and I. And we've been thinking of doing something. We've been doing a project that talks to our sense of distance, to our inability to come together, to work together. And also we've been thinking about collaboration where we could also involve our students and other collaborators. So Rosalie suggested this play, Anonymous. And at that point in Kolkata, while in the United States, Rosalie's university had already opened up, though they were using masks. But in India and in Kolkata, our university was still shut. And we were all working across the online mode. And so as much as I wanted to involve my students, I did not know how we could do that, because we were not able to do offline classes. We could not access the spaces, the rehearsal spaces, the workshop spaces. And however, we did want that students from Maine, from the University of Maine and from President's University also get to meet in the course of this particular project, because Rosalie and I have been invested in cross-cultural connections and in making cross-cultural work. And we found that Anonymous is one such play which talks to our sense of displacement and our sense of migration, no matter where we are placed and no matter in what context we are placed. So while Rosalie has been talking about what comprised her classroom and how the social setup has been at Maine, at Presidency it has been diverse, or in Kolkata it's diverse, but particularly in a different way and in a different context. We do not come across as much racial diversity over here, but we have been struggling with other issues of diversities and distances, like that of lack of access, the digital divide. I am teaching in a public university, so while we did very suddenly shift into the online mode, we were all tackling the problem of not having enough access, of some people staying in urban centers, some people staying in suburban places, long distances. No one could travel, the trains were not running, university was closed. So it was completely the sense of being locked up at home was completely different in this context. And yes, many of us, the partition, separation, informs our history in many ways, which which also does inform the history of all the actors who have collaborated in this project. So when Rosalie and I began to talk about the form, we did want to embed the screen somehow in this particular production, more to talk to our sense of, distance, of trying to reach out and yet not being able to reach out, which is there in the play itself, in which it is a journey where Anon is looking for his mother, was lost in a storm, in a boat wreck. But at the same time, there is a chorus in this play, and I would want to particularly talk about this chorus because there's a chorus of refugees and who are from different places in this, different places across the globe. And they are talking about their own sense of, displacement, their own sense of losing home, and all the elements that remind of home. And this mass of refugee is what spoke to our sense of distance, loss of home at several levels, and also what we have been witnessing globally, politically, culturally across the last decade. So what was there on my mind, and when I spoke to the group of actors, was one image of a boy who during the pandemic, during the sudden lockdown in India, many factories were being suddenly shut down and migrant laborers were just asked to go back home, and there was no transport and they did not know how they could even reach home. So the image of this one boy who was hanging, who was laid off from a spice grinding factory, and this little boy was hanging from the back of a truck, somehow trying to reach home. And I followed that news that he has been then walking miles and finally he did not make it. And like him, many children, many women, many men were walking miles to go back home. They were all migrant workers, and some did reach, some did not. And there was no news. There was a complete invisibility and inaudibility of their voices. Many people died on the train line, on the train track. So I think, and Rosalie and I had a conversation because we said that how do we want to represent these, the chorus of refugees? And we said that we want an arc, because in the play Anonymous, the chorus of refugees appear as people who try to tell their names, who try to tell their own stories, and all of them have individual stories. And until towards the end, they all become one in their shared sense of being displaced, in the shared sense of deprivation. And we wanted to trace that arc through the course of the play on film and on stage. So while throughout the play, the actors the characters also do not really meet, because some of them are on screen and some of them are on stage, and they are trying to interact with each other as if they are in a live space, as if they are in a real space, but ultimately they are not. But also in many ways, ultimately they come together in the chorus of refugees. And what ties them together, what binds them together is this shared experience of, losing homes across cultures, across race, across class. So I think this is one thing which was there on our mind when we tried to work on while we tried to work on Anonymous. And the other thing which I would really like to mention is, because we could not access the university, all theaters were shut, but we decided that we are going to use the format of filming the actors in India live, and the actors in Maine would be on stage. So that is the point when also Arnob, who is a very special collaborator, he stepped in and we sat together, and Rosalie, I and Arnob tried to find the language of, how they would be filmed. And particularly that, the way the actors would be filmed would really rely on a language of theatricality, not on the film language, but on the language of theater. And we were trying to work out that what would be the dimension, what would be the size of the screens, how would the projection work, and if we are trying to represent the same space, do we need to know the dimension in which the characters would be together? They would appear as if they are sitting at, let's say they're sitting at one table. And then finally we figured out that even if there are distances, even if it is not perfect, perhaps this imperfection is what lies at the core of our experiences at that particular point in time, where we are all trying to reach out, but we are not really able to reach out. So then we try to embed that, that element of distance in the form, though we filmed it like though we filmed all the sequences, keeping an element of theatricality in it. So, and I think, James, this is what I had to share from my part. And I don't know, Rosalie, if I'm missing something, or if you would want me to add anything to this.
I think that's perfect, and James can turn it over
Yeah.
to Neely.
Yeah, so what it
Yeah.
sounds like is that this production had a lot of unprecedented challenges for everyone involved. And I know from working with Rosalie that for her, the process is as important as the results, especially in perhaps an academic setting. And to that end, we will now delve into that process by watching a documentary that was produced by the two dramaturgs for this production, Niley Raymond and Katie Luck. And I want to ask them a couple of questions. Niley, what was it like doing this project? And especially and how did it feel doing this show coming out of the pandemic?
Hi, James. Thank you so much. I'm Neely. It's been
Neely,
great
sorry about
oh, totally fine. It's been great to hear from Rosalie and Deborah about this project. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about my perspective. So yes, I was one of the two dramaturgs for Anonymous. And I think that there are two things to say about Anonymous, which are, one, it's a show about crossing physical divides, right? Which we were obviously very familiar with during the pandemic. And two, it's a very embodied show. So let me start with the first one. As you're going to see in the documentary, which was very, very well edited by my co-dramaturg, Katie Luck, we had to get very creative in order to connect teams who were physically on opposite sides of the world. And it was a really strange paradigm because we'd practically been living our lives over Zoom for the past, 17, 18 months. As college students, we were taking our classes online. We didn't have the physical classroom anymore. And Zoom had kind of become this agent of division, right? Instead of meeting people in person, you're looking at them on a screen. But with Anonymous, we were suddenly using the same technology, but we were connecting people, right, across these staggering geographical boundaries. And so as a Franco-American and an Acadian, I have refugeeism in my own history. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone, in this cast or on this creative team who couldn't connect with Anon's journey in some way, right? That story of being kind of like victimized by geography. And it was such a beautiful thing to be able to push back against that legacy and to forge this connection across space. I'm actually, my co-dramaturg pointed this out to me. I'm speaking from the UK right now, so we have at least 3 continents represented here, which I think is so cool. Anyway, so I also said that Anonymous is a very embodied show, which you will also see in the documentary. We have all this wonderful choreographed movement and dance and scenes that are very physically and, by turns emotionally intimate. Now, in the pandemic, we definitely became hyper aware of our bodies, but it was a negative thing. Our bodies were in danger. We had to hole up in our homes and protect them. And as theater makers, that's not a great thing, right? It's just repulsive to us. So it was fun with this project to be able to celebrate our bodies again. And we just had such a remarkable collaborative experience, between Calcutta and Maine, working out the movement portions of the show. You're going to see a dance scene in which I was one of the actors. That was definitely a highlight for me. I had never done a foxtrot before. And I think I can speak for the US cast at least, when I say that having our Calcutta castmates acting alongside us, even in a two-dimensional form, they were flat, but they were life-size. It was a new breed of physical theater. It was like a new breed of collaboration, which was fantastic. One last thing, we also really wanted to immerse ourselves in the sensory bits of the story. And so as a dramaturg, I thought it was important, to bring that to the cast. So one thing that a very memorable experience was that in the script, there's a mention of horchata, which is this wonderful Latin beverage made of like rice and milk and all these spices. And both us on the American side and also the team in India made horchata to share as a cast and as a production team. And that was just an incredible experience, right? To physically ground ourselves in the script, in the sensory experience of home and cultural legacy. It was absolutely incredible. So I've also had the privilege to work as a co-dramaturg with the amazing Katie Luck, another collaborative experience. So you'll hear from her next.
Great. And I will introduce Katie in a moment, but I want to sort of point out to everyone that it seems like so many aspects of this production are about learning new skills and new technologies and skills that we didn't necessarily associate with theater, like learning how to make and edit video, right? And learning how to make horchata. And I think this is something also that speaks to all of us, because I think we've all in the last couple of years during the pandemic have had to pick up new skills and emphasize things we didn't, parts of our aspects of our personality and skills that we didn't think that we hadn't previously used. And it's so interesting to hear about this process as regards this production. And now I want to bring in Katie Luck, an actor and dramaturg who was responsible for this documentary that we're going to be seeing in just a couple of minutes. And I just wanted to ask her first what inspired you, Katie, to create a project in this format, and how making this documentary is an aspect of dramaturgy.
Yeah, so when we met at the beginning of the semester, a large goal of ours as co-dramaturgs was to kind of play into this idea of connection. We knew that already just the format and the form that this, live theater was taking was something that was so unique and was exploring connectivity in a way that I had personally never heard of or even personally ever seen. So to kind of get these moments of like cross-cultural connection, we were connecting with people from, I think, 3 different continents, like in the actual production itself, was something that was so fascinating. And we wanted to make sure that we could bring that connection as close to we could to the audience as well. So, Neely mentioned we did some, smaller forms of like connection with the cast and the production team, where we connected more to like the literary text. We did a little bit of research into how all of the, the different characters connected to the Odyssey. And then we did, horchata, and we all got to experience that together. And so we wanted to make sure that the audience got brought into our little world that we had created for the past couple of months. And so we threw around like a couple of ideas at the beginning of what we wanted to do with that. A couple of the options that we came up with, we had the idea of maybe doing some sort of like installation piece where the audience could kind of like walk through this area and kind of be immersed in the world that Anon, lived through, as we had immersed ourselves in, the script and that world itself. But we were worried that, you know, it wouldn't be too feasible, or that we wouldn't be able to connect with, you know, the people in Calcutta with that. And so we kept throwing around ideas. And another one we came up with was having some sort of talk back after the show. But again, it was another thing where we weren't sure if the audience would stick around for a talk back. The time zone differences made that really difficult. And so finally what we decided on was having in place of kind of like a longer dramaturgical note in the program talking about, you know, what this process was like for us, that we would also do like a supplementary documentary. And so the goal behind this documentary was to kind of connect with both the side in Calcutta and the people in Maine, and then have them tell the audience directly what this experience was like for them. So we explore things in the documentary that you'll see in a moment, different things like how each person connects to the script, or how they connect to, you know, if they were an actor, how they connected to their character. And another thing that we discuss is, you know, how doing this form in such a unique way made this experience wider than we could have ever imagined. So working on this project was definitely the highlight of my college career so far. I'm a senior this year, so I'll be graduating in May. And this is definitely something that I'm going to be bringing with me for the rest of my life. And I'm really excited to show all of you the work that we did.
All right, well, let's see the documentary. I'm looking forward to this.
Give me one moment.
All right.
Won't let me full screen, so we're just going to do it like this.
Okay.
Is it playing for you, Katie?
It is. Is it not for you?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, I saw something though.
Yeah,
Let me
I saw
If you
I
want,
saw something for a second.
I can always try to if you want.
Yeah. You try, Rosalie.
This is what Deboroti was talking about embracing the process and the imperfections.
Exactly.
Do you want to give it a go, Rosalie?
I'm going to give it a try. One moment.
I think you need to have a black hole or something like that for that. Black hole app can do that.
Arnab, do you want to do it? I can just put it in the chat, and if you want to play it, you can.
I'm sorry, I don't have this black hole
Oh,
app.
that's fine. You know, another
You can
option
send it
is-
to us if you want.
Yeah, I'll send it right now in the chat. Another option is we could all just watch it and come back, but here it is also.
Okay, I'll try to share screen.
Great, thank you. And if you tell me who's playing it, I can spotlight them.
It's me, Monia Jillian.
You're already
you,
spotlit, so there we go.
okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yep.
Okay.
There we go. Bingo.
পরের জায়গা পরের জমিন ঘর বানাইয়া আমি রই আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই পরের জায়গা পরের জমিন ঘর বানাইয়া আমি রই আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই
I think for me personally, the most impactful moment working on this show is the notion that we were able to work with people across the world during a global pandemic. We were able to work with a company in India, which just sounds like the most unattainable thing.
There were two sections rehearsing for the same project, but at two different parts of the world.
So while working with actors over here, the actors from Maine were not present. So they were imagining and they were developing their parts. And then we filmed it. And then actors on the Maine side were actually rehearsing with filmed actors. And we wanted to use this kind of an interactive form interacting between liveness of theater and filmed parts.
These actors we've been working with are extremely talented and they kind of have like a whole different way of working. So seeing their work and with ours and then it coming together has really like brought us all together a lot more.
As actors, a lot of us slash them have to, have a certain suspension of disbelief when it comes to the things that we're doing.
Obviously, they're like very important scenes, but it is challenging to make it work. But that being said, you have to make it work.
Finding that timing, finding how to like perfectly sync up with that video has probably been the most challenging for me. But I love it. I loved every step of the way.
As somebody who explores theater, the liveness of theater appeals to me. The moment of fallibility is what is also magical in theater. There is an element of sacrificing, of surrendering to human error. But when I'm filming, there is a desperate attempt to fix things, to have things absolutely correct with the intervention of technology that contradicts my vision of working in theater. So those experiences have been really illuminating, revealing.
What's been really impactful for me has been watching all of the scenes and all of the characters and even all of the tech kind of like slowly transform into this finished product, which I think is just like in general very impactful.
I love the idea of live theater because I just feel so connected to the actors because it's just so intimate. So this space that we're using is incredible. We're coming out of a global pandemic where people are like craving connection.
আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই পরের জায়গা পরের জমিন ঘর বানাইয়া আমি রই আমি তো সেই ঘরের মালিক নই আমি তো
And something that was really difficult and challenging to shoot was probably one of the refugee movement scenes. Movement has been a little difficult for me, if I may say so. But it turned out beautifully in the end, so I'm really happy about that.
I am a barfly in the show, and there's a scene where we have to dance. I found that I picked it up pretty quick. So I'm like, hey, I can do this. I can do this in front of people.
We do this one scene where we're sort of telling the story of how these refugees came to wherever they were going. A lot of them ended up dying.
We all come from like different places, and even though like none of us are refugees, we were really able to see our differences from each other just from talking over like what these people had to go through coming here.
So while developing the refugee scenes, when I was working with the actors, we realized that the cultural references of many objects, of food, is very unfamiliar to us. So we wanted to find a way of relating, of identifying with it.
I felt like not worthy to tell their story. Like I didn't struggle through this. Like I can't even begin to imagine the pain they went through.
We started to explore smell, objects, memories,
a sense of touch, and everything that signifies home.
We do come from a place of privilege compared to these refugees, so it was very humbling being able to tell these stories, and that was really challenging for me, trying to come from a genuine place because I had never experienced that before. But I was able to pull from places in my own life, like how my mom isn't in the States anymore. Like I was able to pull from me missing her and how a refugee might feel about missing their family.
And thereby we started to develop that emotion with a kind of immersive experiences of our own. And that was extremely personal and moving while developing this play.
পরের জায়গা পরের জমি ঘর বানাইয়া আমি করি আমি তো সে পানিতে So this is a Bengali folk song that we've used, which means that porer jayga means porer somebody else's space, and porer jomi means somebody's land. And this song, I felt that would probably would do justice to the entire production, because Anon, as a character, keeps on shifting geographical spaces. And the purpose is to portray the shifting landscapes, because a refugee probably does not own a land, own a space, own a house. And this is what Anon has been going through.
Something that I really want the audience to take away from this is understand the struggles of immigrants.
This play brings an air of if you listen, change will happen.
A sense of longing, a sense of wanting to reach out to your near ones, to things that you have lost, and yet not able to do so.
No matter where you come from, we're all human and we all have these stories.
It made us remember that every individual is important. Every individual has their own uniqueness.
It's genuinely so much harder than we can ever imagine. All that we want you to do is be empathetic and just understand our struggles.
Take stock of how much that they care about one another.
That is what we have tried to explore through the narrative, through the design. And that's what I want the audience to feel.
I want people to think of a brave, young and kind-hearted boy whenever they think of Annie.
I would like to mention here of a video I saw on Facebook a couple of months back. A video from a Syrian boy who was trying to shame the world with helpless rage, to say that how dare you forget us, how dare you don't think about us and don't do anything about it while we die here, we are dying here and you're not doing anything, and how could you just go back to your homes and to your good food, to your family, watch theater and do everything else and not do anything about us. I want that to be the takeaway from Anonymous. But at the same time, I am a believer, I'm a firm believer of fairy tales. I believe in happy endings. I am a die-hard optimist. I also want people to take away from Anonymous that power of positivity, that yes, if all of us want something to happen, the world conspires it to make it happen.
At certain point, it makes the audiences remember about the hardships, the sufferings, and that it's the truth of us all. And at a point, we all become one. We all become anonymous.
And yeah, that's all that I have to say. I hope you have an amazing day.
Please be kind to one another. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye. I hope you enjoy and I hope you take something away from this.
Gwen below upon right. Beat with the guide go kanan with
Well, thank you so much for that. Katie and Neely, consider yourself applauded through through all the, all the time space continuum and cyberspace that we're going through right now. So that's such brought back such great memories of that production, and I'd like to bring in other people right now, though. Right now, actually, the person I want to bring in is the person I'd like to bring in right now is Gorky Mukoji, who did the music, and you saw him speaking just now in the video. And I wanted to ask you about the process you went through, the decisions you made. I just have to say that it was wonderful working with you, even though we've never actually met. It was an interesting kind of collaboration that you and I had. But I was so moved by the choices you made, and I just wanted to know the process by which you decided to use certain instruments, certain motifs, and certain melodies, etc.
Thank you so much, James. Very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to wherever you're in the world. It's been fantastic being a part of this process, Anonymous. And needless to say that thanks to Rosie and Debaroti for having me on board. It's been such an exciting journey. And it all started with the script reading session that we had, Debaroti, Rosie, myself. And that kind of gave me an idea as to where we are heading to. But apart from that, having one-on-one sessions with Debaroti by breaking the script down gave me a very clear idea as to what is required probably. And one thing that is pretty clear about the entire play is that there's this guy, Anon, that I had mentioned in the video, who is probably traversing geographically. And that is something that I wanted to bring in when we were choosing instruments. So we had this Welsh lullaby that you were hearing just a while back in the documentary. And that's the 7th century lullaby. But for me, and at the same time, if I may say that a lullaby probably is for every household, for every home. So this lullaby comes into the play 4 different times. And our intent was to use various instruments of the world. For example, we've used the African kora. And the last time that you were hearing this, we were using tanpura, which is an Indian drone instrument. So a Welsh lullaby sung with an Indian drone instrument or with an African kora probably gives that traversing feeling. And thankfully, both Debarati and Rosie felt that this was good enough to go. And we really chose on these 2 instruments. Apart from the fact that we did also have instruments which are very typically European. So for example, a cello, a violin, and things like these also. And added to this, there was a Bengali folk song that you had heard a while back, which was sung by Totini. And that song probably for me is the nucleus on which we were running around, because it says Porer Jaiga and Porer Jomi. So somebody else's space, somebody else's land, and I build a house and I start to stay there. And that's probably the story for every one of us somewhere down the line. And that is where we thought that one of the most rustic rural folk songs probably could be touching people in Maine. And I am so thankful to the performers that they've made such an excellent level altogether. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, the music was so beautiful and it was such a pleasure. Is this and just a quick question, is this the wonderful thing about the fact that you use so many different kinds of instruments in music? Is there a particular kind of music that what do you consider your primary musical language, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
When I'm working for plays, I mean, it is the essence of the play, and that has to come out. And music for me is probably a catalyst, which the audience probably realizes once they're out of the theater, because it should not be overpowering where you say that, oh, it's only music. So it's not only about music. So it's only about the play, if I may say so. And music has to be one part which creates the work of the catalyst and enhances the entire experience and drives the point home as to what it should be.
Thank you so much, Gorky. I'd like to bring in Avirupa Baduri, and who's one of the performers in this, one of the actors from Kolkata. And I want to ask her about the process of acting in this play, and what was the point of cultural connection to this material.
Hi, thank you, James, and thanks everyone for this opportunity to speak. I would be quick here. I would directly come to the part where we connected over workshops. Really, I primarily worked with Debaroti, and so when she started reading the play, as I said in the documentary also, I am a firm believer of fairy tales. I'm a diehard optimist. So I kept asking throughout the play till it was ended, does Anna find his mother? Please tell me this is going to end happily. And she was like, wait, it's going to be there. And then when we started the workshops, my character was Ritu, who is part of a refugee family who's come to a different land and who has probably settled down well. She has taken all the measures that should be taken to blend into a new land. She's probably seen a lot. She has imbibed a lot, and she is a survivor. She has now made her home. Probably she hopes for her child to have a better life than what she did. And so she doesn't dwell much, apparently, on the life and land that she has lost. I found it easy to connect with her because I am a third-generation refugee. My grandparents came from Bangladesh, which is now Bangladesh, and they never spoke about any of the struggles that they faced and why they migrated. I have not heard a single negative anecdote from them about the other faith and about the journey that they made across the border and how difficult it was and how that choice actually broke them from within. All I heard was this eternal missing of a land that's theirs, the trees, the abandons the fish and the water that they have left behind. So I, being an absolute city girl, I still, a part of me feels that, you know, my desh or my country, desh doesn't have a literal English translation, so I'll just say country. So a part of my country is in Bangladesh, in the villages somewhere. So I have not had the so-called angst of a refugee, so to say, so-called the negative, the anger, the rage, that was not there. So when Debaroti then started to conduct these workshops for the chorus scene that she also talks about, and we also, in fact, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, that was one of the most powerful scenes for me as well. And when she talks about, she started talking about that, she did a couple of workshops. So one of them was, she asked us that, say one day, suddenly you are told that this is not your land, you have to leave in 5 minutes, what would be the one thing that you would carry? And I was honestly, I was taken aback. I thought, oh my God, what would I mean, of course, the cell phone, but that's not it, right? So something that you would connect to. And that actually triggered my memory of my grandparents. And I thought, my God, what would they have taken with them? Probably nothing. What is that nothing that they have taken? What are those? Maybe something absolutely insignificant, which has got no monetary value as as it would be practical to do so. So, and that connected me to the Syrian boy, you know, and that kind of that rage of that boy, the helpless anger that he felt. And while we were doing that chorus scene, all of us, for we don't know why, we started crying. All of us in that scene, if you see that scene, you'll see that, you know, we are just, tears are rolling down our face, but you know, we are at the same time, we're angry and we are crying inconsolably. And even Debaroti was crying the entire set. Everybody, it was so powerful that even after they said cut, nobody moved for a couple of seconds. So yeah, that was very touching. But then again, I don't want to dwell on that. As I said, I'm a believer of fairy tale, I'm an optimist. So I'll go back to the second workshop that she did. So there was this one scene where we had to say words of food that we have grown up with, comfort food. And they were, because Anonymous is written by Now Musica, the food was not familiar to any of us, like horchata, like pho. We have not heard it. And so when when we asked what are those foods, what do they taste like, you know, in order to connect as actors, how we would articulate it. And then Debarati said this wonderful thing, which still I hold very close to my heart. She said, forget about how the real food tastes like. Think of your comfort food, Hana bhat, dudh muri, and say it. And say it, just words would be different, but say it with the emotion of your comfort food. And that made it so easy. But we didn't forget horchata. So my daughter, she is an active Instagrammer. She found out the recipe of horchata from Instagram, and she came running to me after the filming was over. She said, we found the recipe, let's do it. Incredibly, all the ingredients are very much available in India. We have had rice since time immemorial. I mean, this is the land of rice, but we have never had anything like horchata. That cooking process was completely alien to us. But me and my daughter, we were so excited. We made horchata with the available ingredients. We replaced, I think, tweaked a little bit, tiny bit or two, but then there was horchata, and we were so excited and elated, and we immediately wrote to Rosalie and the team from university of mine and said, yeah, we made horchata. And you know what, that kind of made that Mexican wave, and they were like, oh, we have to make horchata now. And then they also made horchata and they shared their video, and I was like, yes, that's the bridge. So that is it for me as an actor.
Have you made horchata again since?
Yes, actually, quite. I mean, summer break, not in the winter so much, but yes, in the summer, many more times after that. And I've made it a point to actually make my mother taste it, and even she was like, "Oh, what is that now?"
It's so wonderful. It's like another way of looking at rice that you've looked at all your life. But I want to talk about that optimism that you keep mentioning. That's the core of your being. Because what strikes me is that all of you from Kolkata, talks about the struggles, and they talk about, and you talk about it in this sort of abstract way. But while you were doing this, I mean, all of us here in the States were having these news reports from last summer about how horrific it was in India during the pandemic there, and how and all sorts of other problems that were going on in terms of the weather, in terms of unrest, and yet it seems that, and because you talked about the struggles just now as if it were happening to someone else, but they were happening very much to you and all of you, and I was wondering if, I mean, obviously you're going through it, but I was wondering if you brought any of that into this, and how that, and whether this play was somehow a refuge from that, or an expression of that, of what you were going through, or any of those emotions, how that tied in.
Oh, that's a great new arena that I right now, as you say it, I begin to think, and I'm like, yes, the thing that the struggle that we had as to go through as a country, we were witness to, like we talked about that boy hanging from the truck, and we were forced to see, migrant laborers, mutilated bodies, the rotis that they were carrying strewn across the railway track, and they didn't know that there was a railway, because if there was a railway, they could hop onto that train and come to their villages, but that train was refused to them. But that train didn't stop mulling over them when they were tired and were sleeping on the tracks. We were also witness to the photographs of the feet of migrant workers, the shoes that they were wearing, not even shoes, the slippers that they were wearing were torn, and there were boils and blisters all over. We saw through that, and what Devaroti said, that we missed. I mean, the only went out was through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram. All we did was sitting in the comfort of our home. Yes, we had the only probably difficulty that we faced was a salary cut, but we were still very much with our jobs. I mean, actually, I learned cooking. My children actually became pro in mobiles and technology. They had their classes in Zoom, but their counterparts were deprived of now almost 2 years of schooling, their age, children of their age. And there's a huge digital divide. So when they together land in for their career, there's a huge difference that has been created consciously. Now, point is, and we talked about that, and the went out was through Facebook. All we could do was share things and just rant over Facebook, and that was that. We could help. I didn't know what more we could do, and at this play, actually, and we are also, as actors, as performers, we missed, as the professor said, and also Rosalie said, the physicalness of performance, the audience reaction then and there. the joy of watching your audience stand up for after the play is over, and 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 looking at your audience and abashedly crying and watching the audience cry as well with you, that is so like so powerful. We were missing that as well. So a lot of it was probably mulling inside us. And when Debaroti and Rosalie came with this opportunity, I think all of that, and you so wonderfully said, and I kind of all, I can feel that all probably came out through that exercise. And we also connected with the mind actors. So in one or two sessions, we did a Zoom call, and even that, that we are co-actors, we connect, but yet there's a disconnect, and we try to kind of touch them through the screen, and even they were trying to touch us, but we couldn't. And this, I think, came out in the play for I would like to say for both of us, for both our teams. That urge to touch, to feel, yet not being able to do that, and to use the screen, and that kind of totally came out, I believe. I would like to believe.
Well, I'd like to hear now from someone who actually was able to look at the audience in real time, and that's Asher Mason. And I want to bring him in, and thank you so much, Avirupa, and talk about Asher. Are you there?
I am here.
Okay, and I want to talk about your experience of this play, and about the process that you went through with your character and your way into this material.
Thank you so much for letting me speak here. There are so many things that I would love to speak on. I could probably talk for hours about this play and not say everything there is to say. But there are just a couple things that really touched me as I was working on this play that I thought were important to share. And I think you mentioned looking at the audience, and one of the things that really stayed with me after I worked on this play and while I was during working on it was how engaged everyone was, specifically the audience. We had, I think, 7 performances with a live audience, and after each one of them, multiple audience members would come up to us and talk about how they related to the play and how the play touched them and affected them and how they thought it would stay with them. And it's something I sort of knew beforehand, but really was reinforced in me was how the feelings of being lost and trying to find our way and having our voices be heard is something that I think everyone can relate to. In some way, everyone in the world is trying to find a way to have their story be told and have their voice be heard. And I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood where I got to interact with a lot of immigrants and refugees and people from around the globe. And something that so many people struggle with is feeling like they are alone and feeling like they are lost. And I think putting on a play coming out of a pandemic that is almost entirely about telling stories that don't get to be told is something that is not only very unique, but very special. And I think that's like Katie said before, that this is an experience that will stay with me probably my entire life. 2 scenes that I would like to touch on specifically that I think were really impactful were, one, I think it was mentioned earlier, there's a scene where refugees come out on stage, and each one of them says a line, and the only thing we know about them is their name and a very vague fact about them. And one of the reasons that I think that was so impactful to so many people is that there are so many stories in the world that we will never get to hear, of so many interesting and unique and amazing people that unfortunately just will never be told. I think this scene really represents that in the way that we hear so little about each of these refugees, and then we are left wondering where they're from and who they are. And I think that is something, at least for me, that is something that stays with me quite a bit, is meeting people and then just wanting to know more about them, wanting to know their stories.
Well, speaking of making sure that we hear everyone's stories and that everyone's stories get to hear, I want to make sure that we hear from everyone in the production right now. So I want to turn this over to Kushani Mukherjee and ask her about her experience playing a very interesting character that perhaps isn't quite human. Hello, Kushani, hello. Tell me about this character that you played and your way into portraying this being.
Basically, I am still facing some issues regarding the network and the camera and all. So, am I audible?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So basically, before starting about telling my preparation or the training for the character, I would like to add that in Bengal, with the pandemic and the lockdown and this migrant workers, they were trying their best to come to their home, and there were two cyclones that we faced, and the understanding of home in between the lockdown was just changed in a moment, that it became like home is a privilege for some of us, and understanding home. And when we are just heard that stay home, stay safe, and there are many people who don't have the home, how would they get that line? I don't know. So at that moment, when I was so not just we all were so away from the stage, the wooden floor, it was hard to create or understanding that we can create. We have that ability or capability, we will try, or something like that. I was not in that state, and I get the opportunity to work in this play, Anonymous, and for me, the training process was something that that was a new experience for me. As I am really comfortable in Bengali, and I have never done anything, any play or acted in any play that is based on some other language. So just while going through the script, it was so hard for me to understand the culture, because whenever we speak, we just don't represent the language but the culture or the intentions of words. So Devarati ma'am and all the workshops we had helped me to just go beyond that language barrier and understand the feeling or understand the idea of the character Naja. And also in my country, we witnessed that protest against the NRC and NPR, some rules and regulations that were telling you that you are illegal and someone else that you are legal. And we had witnessed like a wide and large movement in our country, and Naja became a part of it for me. This character, it was not the mass, she was not the representative of the mass, but the idea that we were holding in our mind that we can do it and we will try our best to face it. So this is something that I can tell about Naja. And I also go through the main text or even Odyssey, and also the name, like the word Naja is, there are many like many meanings of it in different languages, but one of its meaning is the rescuer. So this backstories helped me a lot. And also I also was in the chorus, so the workshops the Obhurupadi said or Devarati ma'am said, those were also part of building this character. Like I was also going through the emotions and backgrounds of the course characters, the refugees, and we were running from a space to another space. And Nada is someone, again, who is trying to like convince these characters that, yeah, you can find your home again. So at one moment I was trying to find my home, and another moment I was convincing me that I can find home. So it was interesting. And the last thing that I want to add, as a student of performing arts department, and as like I'm working as an actor on stage for several years, so stage is something that I feel where I feel comfortable, or it's known for me. And we had our all trainings and practices and workshops on that mindset that we are on stage. And when it comes to the screen, it was when I was feeling restricted, that it's so small. I was unable to be that large. But somehow all these technological things and technical things, they helped me a lot. But yeah, I missed that. And I also felt when it was the first show, I missed that palpitation in a way, that yeah, it's the first show. And I miss that. I just hope that we get the chance. If we get the chance, it will be amazing. Maybe if one day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kushani. And I want to bring in right now Ankita Sarkar, and who is a production manager as well as an actor in this production, and to hear her perspective. It was great to hear Kushani talked about the idea of home and finding that home in this process on stage. And I'm wondering if that was something that you felt as well.
Yes. So during this lockdown, I moved into 3 spaces. First was my home. Second was I was locked for 4 months in Delhi. And when I returned, I was searching for, let me first be clear with my emotions regarding Kolkata. Kolkata, I know Kolkata since 2018, but that space has been very much mine. It gives me that sense of hope, safeness. So I felt like when I was logged in these 2 places, I was thinking when I would return to Kolkata. And when I returned, it happened something. Ma'am invited me to be a part of this project, and it was more than what I expected. So it was a new experience, first of all. And secondly, I was staying at Koshani's house because I had no shelter at that moment, but when I except her house at that moment. But staying in Kolkata was something which gave me that hope that yes, I can carry on with this project for like 1 month, because we would stay, we would have our workshops and then the shoot. So yes, while finding that sense of home, that was there because I was there in Kolkata. And the next thing what helped me was the workshops. The workshops where I can give examples, like there was a line where squirrels flying from one tree to another. So what we were asked to was to think that what would say that quick moments of a squirrel that can fly from one tree to another. So we were asked to dive into our own experiences, some spaces that we can relate with these moments, so that we can build those emotions within us, so that we can portray those lines and bring in that sense which the lines were actually depicting. As Ovirupadi said, there was this thing when ma'am said to think, think or revisit the smell, the colors, the food that we are accustomed to, because there were words which we were not familiar with. So this new space where we were doing our rehearsals, the space was new, but somehow we maybe made, or there were those experiences within us that gave us that space, so that we can sense that home, that safeness within us. Another thing was, this one thing was very interesting. This one interesting thing was that while we were delivering our lines, we never knew with whom we were talking. It was only after we finished the shoot that we met those people in Zoom. So before that, we never met. We just knew that, yes, we are talking with someone. I am talking with Anon, but I don't know who is Anon. It's blank, and we were imagining a person standing before us. So this was very interesting part of this project. And yes, props. There was one day we were planning out the props, and ma'am said, we need a sword, we need a surfboard. And I and Koshani were looking at each other, and we were like, we'll make it, we don't need to buy. So ma'am was like, are you sure you both would make those? We were like, yes, we can make it. And the next day we were up with cardboards, colors, and that was one thing that we both said that we would make, but when we sat, everyone joined us. Everyone was doing this or other. Everyone was like, yes, I would do this, I would do that. And that was very amazing. Yes, these connections, these help out. Like, if I say that I was a member of the chorus and I was a production manager, I would have not been able to carry out my work if the others were not present. Like, we would be hungry and there would be chai, there would be bread before us. So they also helped us all to carry on with our workshops. Yeah, that's all, I think.
Thank you so much, Ankita. And I just want to thank all of you. We are into overtime right now. We got a little bit of a late start and some technical difficulties. So I wanted to thank all of you.
James, we still have a moment that you could.
Yes, we're not done. So if you all want to stick around, we actually have at least one more person that I'd like to talk to here, as well as some questions I'd love to take. But right now, I want to talk to Anurag Roy. Are you there, Anurag?
Oh yeah, I am here.
Okay. Oh, very good. And because you did film for this production, and I want to hear something about how that process was for you.
Well, it's first of all, thank you, James, and thanks to Rosalie and Devaroti, my Marvel and DC actually, and thanks to them that I got this opportunity to work on this project, and it was really fascinating from top to bottom, and still I'm really amazed by this form of artwork. I can say this is kind of new thing for so many people, not for so many people. Absolutely, I would like to say this is really new thing to enter world, because we had research on this, this form of theater, but we found a few person to do such thing, like working with this recorded filmed things or graphics or whatever it is. So I must say that first of all, the cheers to everyone, because we are really part of history, I'd like to say, because it is maybe 2 or 3 per group or solo project I have found in the internet who are doing this kind of stuff. And this is really something which is going to change the world and change the definition or the language of artwork very soon, because by 2025 maybe we are going to get internet 2.0, and then maybe we're going to come up with a different kind of I mean, form of this particular art form, where maybe they're going to act as avatar on space live. I'm really hoping to see that thing. And my part, the filming part, my challenge was really just to connect these two side, like Prezi guys and with main guys. So I was pretty much like this Zoom, maybe. My part was just connecting both end. So at first we thought like how this is going to happen, how much live we can make this filming part. So is it going to be hologramic theater, or is it going to be just fabric or something like that? So we started watching 2005 Grammy performance by Madonna and Gorillaz. I bet you guys know that there was a hologram stage and there Madonna swung around that Kaz, I think, the guitarist. So it was fascinating. Back in those days, it was quite fascinating. But right now, we really can do that thing if we get that infrastructure and that bandwidth. So we started thinking from that point, and then we came. Then Debaroti said, like, we are going to come up with fabrics because it's going to give us some human touch. So then we started thinking, okay, let's do the geometry. What is going to be the size of those cartons and all? Because we have to like do the mathematics. You know, if a guy who is like 5 feet 4 inch or 5 feet 6 inch, so accordingly, I have to do the editing. Like we have to put the ratio. So are we going to do the 16:9, or are we going to do that Instagram kind of 1:1 ratio? So a lot of technical stuff was there, and it was really amazing experience, and it was really a game-changing experience for me because I started learning Blender for that. I mean the 3D software. So there was so many different kind of path I took, and I hope that very soon we are going to come up with so many good project and the next level of this project. And that's the thing, that's the part from my side. So my challenge was connecting main and presidency, Kolkata. So I just thought on that point only. So it was just
well, it was, I mean, I have to say the way what you did for that production was extraordinary in terms of having all these elements, all these different media come together and feel
thank you.
so organic, and really like it all came from the same place, and that it wasn't that the technology did not draw attention to itself, but really felt like a organic part of the production. And right now, I mean,
Yeah,
and also
for that, I'm sorry
Go
to
on.
interrupt you. For that thing, I'd like to, that's why I said that my Marvel and DC. For that thing, I'd like to thanks to Devaroti and Rosalie, because I am a nerd kind of person, a very much tech geek kind of person. So I always think on that aspect, but they came up with, no, this is going to be theater end of the day. So you have to come up with some touch and some feeling of and those are actually their ideas.
But I'm also struck by just how how optimistic all of you and all of you, you're talking about Internet 2.0 and the future, and it's just coming from such a place that we've been in for the last couple of years, and all these dark thoughts. It's just another aspect of how life affirming this entire project was, by acknowledging the dark and then working towards the light. And right now I want to thank all of you for sticking with us. So I want to make sure that everyone got to say that showed up got to say something. But right now, if we can take a few more minutes, I'd love to take some questions. If there's questions from anyone, for anyone who's here. Is there? I mean, I know I have more questions, and it's also possible that there's questions on some chat thing that I can't see. So since there's some technical lags here, but I do want to I want to hear from some of the performers who what their thoughts were from either Maine or or Kolkata about how they felt seeing that documentary this few months later, and what part of this process is still with them, and that they might feel like, oh, that's still with me all these months later. Anyone?
Yes, I want to add something that in Kolkata there is a festival called Durga Puja. It's the most celebrated festival in our locality, and the last day is called Doshami, and we just tried our best to say goodbye to the festive mood. So basically in 2021, in the Doshami day, I was about to buy my food and I was waiting for the food. I just got the link of this documentary and I just played it. And for a moment, I saw that we have done something. And the music, we didn't know about the music while we were shooting or practicing our parts or something. And after seeing this, and even today, just the smell I got after seeing that, I can't translate it in words, but I can express it in a way, and it is the only only thing that we can see after doing this whole production. Still, for our side, we was unable to be there and experience that whole show thing, but it is the only one thing.
Well, I wanted to ask, that actually leads me to another question, which is, to what extent, and this is for anybody, to what extent did this process change your idea of what theater could be? Like, any of your preconceptions of, okay, this is what theater is, and then you come out of this and like, oh, it could be this other thing. It could be this other process that we learned here.
RSA after doing this project, I must say on this point, maybe tomorrow we are going to do a live performance in metaverse or something like that pretty soon.
Oh, right. Exactly.
The horizon expanded really big, really big.
And for the students in Maine, I just wanted, if any of you are still with us, I just wanted to know, in the months since, how has this impacted? Like, you had audiences going there, you had people coming, or people still coming up to you, or are you still feeling the after effects, the afterglow of this performance, of this production? Anyone from Maine?
I'll go ahead. I do think this performance has stayed with me still, and there are still in our department many students who are not here, unfortunately are not here with us today, that still talk about this production and how it has affected how they have viewed others and have viewed the world. I don't want to speak for others, but I want to throw out some things that have been said, such as a few students have talked about how that this gave them a new perspective on how empathetic they could be towards stories and people that they have never met. And so often people can only see can only think about like people who you've met, and you can relate to people who you've seen and met and have shared experiences with. But Anonymous has shown us that we can be empathetic towards people that we have never met and will never meet, unfortunately. And I think that's something that just hearing that from others has sort of like affected my view of the world. So just wanted to share that really quick.
Thank you so much, Asher. That's great.
James, unfortunately, we are at time, even though I would love to continue talking and tying together all of these moments and cross-continental conversations, but I'll give you time to wrap up your thoughts, James, and then we will continue on.
Well, actually, I just wanted to make sure if, I just wanted to see if Rosalie and Deboroti had any last thoughts.
Just to thank everyone for this opportunity to have this conversation. That's all I have, but thank you all.
Yeah, same. Heartfelt thanks to all for being with us this evening, and to all our collaborators for bringing so much of meaning to this work. You just made it so meaningful for us, all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
This was such a wonderful project for me to work on, and I thank all of you for being here today. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you. It was great listening to you.
Thank you very much.
To take that extension, thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, so much for inspiring and impacting all of us here at Foot. We are so grateful to have been witness to this amazing project. And just a reminder, Rosalie has popped some of the bios into the chat if folks want to click on those and further explore everyone's bios and links that are posted there. Some just final words that I'm leaving with is this project has transcended theatrical boundaries. It's a new breed of physical theater, exploration of sensory elements to connect various cultures, various individuals, breaking boundaries, coming together as one. Thank you all for being a beacon of hope in these precarious times. Enjoy the rest of your day. And if you'd like to attend Zoom Room B, that presentation is going on. But without any more discussion, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.